Hello, everyone. Welcome to week number 5, Introduction to Criminal Investigation. This week here, we're going to look at the Innocence Project. I'm going to go, why are we going to look at the Innocence Project? We're going to look, this is an investigation class and all that. The whole thing boils down to the fact that you need to have ethical things when you're doing an investigation. I can't emphasize that enough. And you're going to see by reading the Washington Post article that I posted regarding the fact that people that were wrongly convicted and put into prison and served years and years and years in prison when they were actually innocent. And that was a result that sadly, that report saying that 54% of the people that were wrongly convicted were done because of the fact of misconduct by the police, misconduct by the prosecutor, misconduct by all kinds of situations where prosecutors and police did horrible investigations. They did interrogations that violated people's rights. They withheld evidence. They manufactured evidence. They withheld what's called exculpatory evidence from the defense. And this is when we have the situation where you have to share everything with your defense attorney. And in some cases, prosecutors and sometimes police too were so bent on getting a conviction that they compromise morality, they compromise their personal integrity, and it's resulted in this scathing report that's almost embarrassing to realize that these things actually happened in our society. We're going to look at some other factors that go into when investigation is going. One real thing is the Innocence Project that was started by John Sheft and his partner, Peter Newfield. That really gained a lot of notoriety with the O.J. Simpson case when they challenged the detective Mark Furman of his focusing on just getting a guilty conviction and not maintaining the proper evidence, taking DNA and throwing it in the trunk of the cruiser and driving home and leaving it in there, knowing that the heat and everything can destroy DNA. Manufacturing testimony, all those types of things there. Things that are embarrassing to me as a former police officer, things that would just doesn't make any sense. You cannot focus in on finding someone guilty. You can't do those things. And we're going to see some of the other things that happen. Things like what's called junk science. People were convicted on strands of hair before the issues of DNA, where there was nothing scientific about identifying the hair, except zealous prosecution and phony expert witnesses would say that was that person's hair. Looking at bite marks, people were actually convicted on bite marks in sexual assault and assault cases, whereas there's no scientific evidence that can say for sure what a bite mark is. Now with today's technology, a bite mark will have DNA on it. So that's those things that happen. And properly doing a crime scene search. One of the leading things of people that are convicted that were innocent, people that were coerced into making a confession. And you say, how can someone confess to a crime that they know they didn't commit? Because of the fact that the interrogation and the police officers that were corrupt, taking advantage of people that didn't have a good IQ, taking advantage of people through lengthy interrogations that went on for 10, 12 hours. And now we have all kinds of situations with that. One of the most disturbing things that happens with wrongful convictions is the thing that we, because of our basic knowledge, think that an eyewitness is the best thing that you can have. I have a person that witnessed this crime happen. Why? What more do you need from that? And unfortunately, you're going to see in several videos here that eyewitness identification is probably one of the worst things that can happen, unless you are 100% sure. And you'll see, particularly in the case of Ronald Cotton, a victim, a victim of a brutal rape, was so convinced that he was the person that did it, Ronald Cotton, that they went to 2 trials, and she testified in both trials, and and he wasn't the guy that did it. It was a guy that looked like a Bobby Poole, and finally DNA exonerated him. You're going to see Michael Morton, who was accused of killing his wife, and how a corrupt district attorney down in Texas railroaded the guy for over 20 years of his life in prison. You're going to see a juvenile, Brian Banks, that wasn't given good attorney, was forced to make a decision as a juvenile. All these things there, and convicted, and the ramifications that happened with them. Another gentleman who lost his life for a crime that he didn't commit. And then the other part that you're going to see is that what happens, if you're convicted and you know you're not guilty, and you're given a choice for a parole hearing, that if you say that you were guilty and you know you're not guilty, that's a real dilemma. And there's a real dilemma that you're going to see in the last video there, of how can something like this happen in our country. And this is why I'm emphasizing the fact that before you go ahead with an investigation and you have a suspect, that you've got to be sure. Looking at, again, getting back to eyewitness identification, we're now in the situation with what's called a double-blind lineup, a double-blind photo array, a double-blind voice thing. And you'll see a policy and procedure from a department that makes sure that the witnesses are not going to be influenced by the officer. Particularly, maybe it's the officer who was doing the investigation. They should have no part of a lineup or anything like that. And we're going to see why, and you're going to see why. It's just so important to have that out of the way before we start looking and investigating different crimes. And so I hope that you'll get a good understanding regarding this topic, to realize that the majority of police officers, going back to the fact that the majority of police officers don't do this thing. But you don't need, all you need is a couple, and the people can paint with a broad brush and say that all cops do it, all prosecutors do it, all expert witnesses do it. And that's not the case. But the thing that we need to do is make sure that it doesn't happen. And this is where we go back, where we go way back, the emphasis on policy and procedure. We cannot deal with situations. You have to have proper policy and procedure. You have to have checks and balances. You have to have ethical people on all levels of the criminal justice system. And hopefully, we're working now with here in Massachusetts, with our police reform, with certification of officers, with departments that are going for accreditation. You people were very, very good in your responses about accreditation and the need for accreditation. It's like driving an aircraft carrier. Slowly but surely, when you set something on the right course, is that it's eventually going to get there. And I hope that's what happens here to us here in Massachusetts. So good luck on your assignments. I'm looking forward to some of your replies to some of the questions that I'm asking, because it's going to take a lot of inner thought and personal thought on your part. And I really enjoy seeing your insights, and we'll look forward to this class being done and getting your replies. So in the meantime, stay safe and healthy out there, and keep up the good work. Thank you.